Welcome to the Providence College Podcast. Subscribe to the show on iTunes, SoundCloud, Stitcher, and Google Play. If you like what you hear, please review and share with others. Email podcast@providence.edu with questions or comments. Go Friars!
Hello and welcome to the Providence College Podcast. I'm your host, Matt Chittum, and I'm joined by our producer and PC videographer, Chris Judge, class of 05. This episode is a little different from some of our previous episodes. It actually has two parts. The first interview is with Ray Treacy, the head coach of the cross-country and track teams here at Providence College. Coach Treacy is a legend not only in the Friar community, but also in the national and international running communities. The second part of the podcast is with PC grad student Lauren Mullins, who's been running here at PC. This is her fifth year after a redshirt year, and as a member of the number one ranked women's cross-country team at PC, she has a lot of stories about what it's like to run for Coach Treacy and with some of the best runners in the country. So I hope you enjoy this episode of the Providence College Podcast. So we are joined by Ray Treacy, head coach of the men's and women's cross-country and track teams. Ray, thanks for joining us.
Thank you. No problem.
We were just talking about, should I call you Ray or Coach? And you said immediately, no, call me Ray.
That's something that all the athletes in the team call me, something that I'm used to from the time I started coaching. So we just go with that all the time.
No, that sounds good. So when people call you Coach on a recruiting trip or something, you're immediately like, no, I'm Ray. Do you feel like that kind of disarms them in a way? Because it is kind of a cultural norm to have someone call you Coach.
Not really. They just get used to it. The people who come in for recruits, they see the athletes on the team calling me Ray, and they get used to it when they actually come here. Then they just go that way with it.
Right, and your team is known for having such a great culture. The team members obviously bond very well. Anyone who follows Providence College on social media or is a member of the Providence College community has seen that with their own two eyes. How has that played a part in how you've decided to construct your team, since the minute you got here as head coach?
Oh, that has evolved as I took over the program back in 1985. That's the way our men's team was while I was an athlete here. So I felt that would be a good blueprint. Coach Amato had done a really good job with the men's team while I was here, and the years before that. So when I started the women's program, I used that as the blueprint and tried to develop the program the same way as the men's program had been. When Mrs. Burt hired me back in 1985, her first words to me were that she wanted the women's team to be as good as the men's team, which was a high order because the men's team are coming off finishing second at the NCAA's 2 years in a row. But we took it on board, and it took a little bit of time to get to the level that the men were at. But we've been there for the last 25 years now.
That's for sure. In fact, your most recent national championship was with the women's program a couple of years ago. And that you bring up a good point in terms of trying to build a program and then sustain the excellence piece. Obviously, bringing in talented runners is paramount within that. But what other characteristics are you looking for during the recruiting process and once they get here in terms of nurturing them through their 4 or 5 years at school?
Well, first and foremost, we're looking for people who will fit the profile of a Providence College student. Academically, they have to be strong enough to handle what Providence College is going to throw at them academically. And then athletically, we try to find out that they can fit in with our program. And I'm lost at the train of thought here.
So when they're trying to fit into the program, obviously there's a maturation process that goes with that. Then you also have the mentoring piece with the older student athletes, the juniors and seniors and graduate students who have some influence on the younger athletes. When we were getting ready for this, you mentioned that if someone comes on their official visit to PC as a high school athlete and they're here for 48 hours, how they kind of present themselves to their teammates is a huge piece of the recruitment for you in terms of determining some of their kind of off-track characteristics.
Well, when we bring somebody in for an official visit, a lot of time high school seniors when they come in for official visits think that they are looking at us, but we're looking at them as well. And it's very important that when somebody comes in for an official visit, they get along with the other members of the team, that they feel comfortable with them, that the members of our team that are here already feel that they can be good members of our team if they actually came here. And sometimes I get a negative review on a recruit, and that's the end of the process then with that particular recruit. Most of the time the people that we bring in for visits are people who meet the profile academically and athletically, but socially they may not, and we have to, that's a huge part of the process for us as well. And if a captain of our team comes to me after an official visit and says that person is not a good fit for us, we will just back off that process. And it has worked for us. That's the way we do it. We have a great culture within the team, a great environment, and that only works if everybody gets along together. And we've had great leaders and stuff over the years that are not afraid to tell me that a great athlete is probably not a great fit for Providence College.
Well, that's fantastic. And you've had a lot of success from a team perspective and individual athletes on both the men and women's teams who've reached their own individual and high-level personal success. Have you felt like during the recruiting process of some of those athletes, you've been able to identify them in terms of, all right, this is someone who could potentially win an NCAA title, this is someone who could potentially be a professional, or is it a little bit less specific than that in terms of potential gauging? It's
a little less specific. You don't really know until they actually get here. Obviously the athletes we recruit out of high school are all national talent level athletes, but until you get to work with them on a daily basis and observe them on a daily basis, you really don't know what level they can get to. In high school they might have trained really hard, they might not have a huge upside. Other athletes might have a bigger upside because they're coming from a smaller program or didn't train as hard, so you don't really know until you've worked with them for a period of time. You can really tell by the end of the first semester at what level that athlete is going to be able to help you. Some can be NCAA champions, some can be All-Americans, some can be a great 5th, 6th or 7th runner that will be vital to us on the big days. But you can figure that out fairly quickly, but not during the process. We're recruiting athletes that we know will help us in some level. The level, we won't know until they get here.
And that holds true for both men and women athletes in terms of the first semester, painting a picture for their potential next 3 or 4 years of athletic success?
It holds more for the women, I would say. The men kind of do develop along the lines they were in high school a little bit more than the women. Sometimes there's an attrition rate with the women that they don't develop to the level that can help us a lot, but the men, we operate at a pretty good level in terms of the men that come in here and can compete at the level that we expect them to compete at.
And as a team, or both teams I should say, this past week you were ranked first, the team was ranked first on the women's side, 24th on the men's side. So obviously, another great year happening for both teams so far. In terms of setting goals for the team and for individuals, what's that process like for you, and how often do you have those sorts of conversations with your student athletes?
Well, it's separate goals. We have to split the teams when we come to setting goals. Obviously, the expectations were high for the women coming in from the very start because we were 4th last year, and we have everyone coming back from our top 5, and we added a few others as well. So the expectations are very high for our women's team. The men didn't make nationals last year, so the goal for them is to make it back there, and I think we have a group of guys that are are quite capable of doing that, and I think this past weekend showed that. So they're in pretty good shape after this weekend. I think they're going to get a lot better as the season goes along and be better than what people think. Our women are doing what they should be doing at this stage. We haven't been beaten yet, and until somebody beats us, we're probably the number one team in the country, and stuff. It's hard to predict because we won't race against some of the better teams until we get to the NCAA meet, especially Colorado in that regard. But I'm happy with where we are right now. We're getting stronger and stronger as the season goes along. We're adding people. By the time the Big East comes around, it'll be hard for a really good athlete to make our top 7 even. Mm-hmm. So that's the way you need it to be. You need to have 7, 8 great athletes battling for spots on the team, and we have that right now, and that's what's going to stand to us at the end of the season, I think.
Now, I think it's obviously some of your athletes, or I say all of your athletes, are going to be in shape year-round. These are high-level athletes, high-level runners. With that said, as you just mentioned, people kind of improve during the year as well, and they're battling for positions. How often does someone, say, improve during a cross-country season, or is it more of they just get used to racing, or maybe they're in a better position to compete better because they've had a little bit more rest, or they're backing off a little bit? How much, I guess, to tighten that up, how much does someone improve during the cross-country season versus how much is it just the rest being a factor and then being prepared for a big meet?
Well, I think one of the main tenets of our program is that we do get better as the season goes along. We get a lot better, both teams. By the way, because of the way we train, we don't pound them with a lot of pace work and workouts early in the season. We are consistent with everything that we do. The most important thing at this time of the year is keeping them healthy, not getting any injuries, not getting sick. We can't avoid illnesses at times, but we try to minimize that. And if we do that and keep healthy, we're going to get better as the season goes along. We normally we're running well at the most important time of the year. That's at the NCAA meet, and I have no doubt that as the season goes along, we're going to be a lot better than we are right now. So that's the way we train. Other teams train differently, but what has worked for me over the years, I still using the same blueprint in terms of the training. From year to year, it changes with the different personnel that you might have, but we don't sway away from it too much.
Now, in the last race that you had from the women's side, you had 4 runners that came in within, I think, about 15 to 20 seconds of each other in the 5K. Now, these runners who are, if you look at just as that measurement, they were pretty similar in terms of their ability over that distance. How similar are their training from week to week from, between them? Or are they on the same training model, or is it individualized?
It's 4 of them are on the same model, and then the freshman is Abby does less than the older women on the team. So you have to manage each individual, especially during workouts and during long runs and stuff like that. They'll do different distances during the long run. Some will do 13, some will do 10. During workouts, I'll observe the workout, and I will pull somebody out of a workout when I feel they have enough done. And long as they understand what I'm doing and they do get used to me into the way I do things, that it doesn't affect them mentally if I pull somebody out of a workout. So right now, that group of 5 that I have, and Lauren is joining that group now. And hopefully Sam Jones will join that group by Wisconsin. We'll have a group of 7, but I'll still have to monitor very closely what I'm doing with the freshman Abby, who is very, very talented, but and stuff. This is the first time at this level of competition, racing every 2 weeks, so she's not training at the same volume as some of the other girls on the team, so I'm going to be very cautious with what I do with her over the next 6 or 7 weeks.
Now, taking a different tack on this, in terms of racing at a high level, how much do you say is, for an athlete, the preparation to race, their fitness level versus being able mentally to handle the grueling nature of a race, the pain management, fighting through challenges, fighting through hurdles. If you were to talk about, what makes a great competitor in a race, how much would you put towards the mental side versus the physical side?
Well, I think the way we set up the season, that is a huge part of it for me. I think people need to learn how to race. That's why we race a little more than other teams. We get involved in racing right from the early parts of September. So whereas other teams won't even start till October, I think it's just as important to learn how to race as it is to train. And the only way you're going to learn how to race is to jump into races, and at different levels. Like the early meets that we had were very controlled, but they were on the line. They had to prepare. They had to prepare as if they were running the NCAA meet, and the race might have been a little bit easier than what the NCAA meet would be, but the preparation was the same. So you get used to the preparation, and then the intensity of the races get higher as we go along. Like Notre Dame was our first intense meet, and I think the fact that we had raced a couple of times during the season really helped our men. In particular, they didn't run great in Beantown. A couple of them didn't run well, but they learned from it, and they were a lot better at Notre Dame, and that helped us. Now the confidence is there with those guys as we go into Wisconsin and the Big East meet. If we had started off with Notre Dame and ran like we had at Beantown, we'd have probably finished 15th in the meet. So having those races in their legs and the ability to hurt themselves, because in races you hurt yourself a whole lot more than you do in workouts. So I think you have to learn that. You have to learn that as well as learning how to do a workout. And the only way to do it is to jump into races. And that's a philosophy that I have used all through my coaching career, and will continue to use. Other coaches use a different philosophy, and it works both ways.
Mm-hmm. So you also have the piece where these students are racing. You have only a certain amount of people can score in a race to affect the team score. So you obviously have a situation where you have such a strong culture among the student athletes, but at the same time, when it comes to race day, they all want to win, presumably. They all want to beat everyone ahead of them, whether it's a teammate or not. So is there kind of a paradox in that a little bit, or how do you manage that as a coach, that kind of the competition versus external runners versus internal runners?
Well, that's probably why we race. I like to establish some sort of order in the team as the season goes along. There's no point in my number 8 runner stepping on the line thinking he or she is going to beat my number 1 runner. If that happens, you're going to be the 15th runner on the team by the end of the race. So the races establish an order. We have already established an order within our team, and both teams. You have the group of 5 on both sides. There's Lauren and Sam are coming into play. We'll have a group of 7, but the order will be is set pretty closely with both teams. Obviously it'll change. The order will change a little bit, but they're so tight within a 20-second differential between 1 and 5 on both teams that it can change, but it won't put somebody off really badly. Say if Katie Limbo comes along and beats Bree the next day, so because and it can happen because there's only 5 or 6 seconds between them anyway, but it won't mentally put them off if that happens during the race. So you have to establish some sort of order, and stuff, because if somebody is ahead of somebody that shouldn't be ahead of them, they may mentally take themselves out of the race and then not help you at all. So right now we're in a really good place with that. I think they take comfort in one another as well during these hard races. I think in Notre Dame they really did. They were able to figure out where their teammates were, and they knew everything was going okay because their teammate was close by. Mm-hmm. That's going to really help us with both teams as the season progresses.
That's great. And as the season progresses, you have a situation where, because both teams are nationally ranked, they have high aspirations. How much do you focus on end of season goals versus day-to-day improvement, and making sure that if they handle their business, they're able to kind of reach the ultimate level? How much do you focus on those two things in relation to each other?
Well, we manage every single day with the 19th of November in mind. And in some cases you have to be very individual with some people. If somebody walks in the door and they're coming down with a cold, you have to send them away for a couple of days and say, come back to me in 3 days' time, don't do anything, come back, and we'll evaluate where you are. So if you've done enough of training over the summer and the last couple of weeks to say that you're not going to lose any fitness. So you have to be individual with the November 19th in mind to make sure everybody steps on the line on the 19th of November at the very peak and ready to go. And you have the team aspect as well, but at the same time, as you get later and later into the season, you have to become more and more individual with the different athletes. During September, you're more of a team, and you're running as a team, you're controlling things as a team. But as we get into the big meets now, you'll be a team until the gun goes off. When the gun goes off, you're an individual, and when you press the line, you're a team again. And that's the way it has to be. You're going to go out there, and you're going to have to work just as hard as your teammate, but at the same time, it's what you do when the gun goes off.
All right, sounds great. And you work with more than just the athletes here at PC. You also coach several high-ranking professional runners. And one of the best parts of my job, and I tell people this all the time, I work in Harkins Hall. I can look out the windows of Harkins Hall and see Olympians on the track running, which is kind of a nice perk for me personally as a runner. So what is it like to coach someone, say, like Molly Huddle on a professional level, Kim Smith, recent grad here at PC, Emily Sisson, as well as other athletes? How does your job change in that regard as opposed to coaching here at PC and the collection of student athletes you have here?
Well, the pros you would expect them to be more. I would say more professional about everything they do, stuff. They've gone through the process of being in college. It's a different ball game completely. It's your livelihood when you get out of college and you sign a contract. So they spend their day being athletes all the time, 24 hours a day. Whereas the student athletes are completely different. They're athletes for when they come to practice, and they see themselves as student athletes for the rest of the day, but they have classes to go to, they have exams to take. People like Molly and Kim, they train twice a day. Their whole day revolves around their running stuff. So it's a different mindset, and that mindset evolves as the years go along. Molly is a different athlete now than she was 9 years ago when she came to Providence from Notre Dame. She knows herself better. She knows her strengths and weaknesses better. She's still getting better as an athlete, and that has evolved over time. For me personally, it's an opportunity to work with athletes that have gone through my program, like Emily and Kim, and see them further develop from their college years. With a person like Molly, she was a person that raced against Kim and Mary Cullen in college, and wanted to join them, and stuff. So it worked out well for all. She's a great help to our former student athletes, and we're a help to her. And it certainly doesn't hurt our recruiting either. To be able to say that Molly Huddle coach is runs on our track here, is coached by the coach here, and kind of all those things can win you a battle in the recruiting wars.
I can imagine.
Yeah,
I can imagine. So we have a couple questions from PC podcast listeners I'd like to kind of finish up with. The first one being, what is it like to train and recruit on a track with your name on it?
Very difficult. I try and stay away from it as much as possible. I don't even like looking at it, but it's a great honour that Providence College has bestowed on me in putting the name on the track, and I'm honoured by it, but I try to avoid it as much as possible. It's something that I will be very proud of for the rest of my days.
All right. I know you're a humble guy. Even just looking at you as I'm asking you that question, I can see you kind of fidgeting. It's not, it definitely makes you uncomfortable, which is why you're so beloved on campus. And with that in mind, another person asked, basically, this is kind of a paraphrasing their question, but you're at a lot of campus events. You're around all the time. People see you sneaking into the bleachers at other sporting events. Why is that something that you continue to do after all these years?
I just love everything about Providence College. It has been a huge part of my family's life. My brother came to school here in 1974, did a lot of great things. While he was here and after college, I met my wife here, Lisa, and my eldest son graduated from Providence College. Providence College has given me a lot more than I've given to Providence College, and I love watching the sports events. I'm a huge soccer fan. Love watching the soccer teams. I enjoy it. It's not just to show up. I just enjoy, and that's what I like to spend my time doing. And when all the teams do well, and our women's teams are doing fantastic this year, it's great to see. We're all excited about that, and kind of everything is going in the right direction here. I feel like, having been here over 30 years, it's never been as great as this, from a competitive standpoint at Providence College, and I feel really good about that, and long may it continue.
All right, and the last question, this actually comes from someone close to us, our PC videographer and producer sitting next to me, Chris Judge, who, like myself, is a weekend runner, sometimes on the weekdays as well. Do you have any advice for the people listening who are weekend runners, who are a little bit older in life but trying to do well at their local 5Ks or 10Ks?
It's just the most important thing, I think, is being consistent. Training is about being consistent, trying to get out as much as you can, getting out there and enjoying your running. Set goals for yourself, try and reach those goals, and just keep it enjoyable, and stuff. If it becomes a drudgery, where you're forcing yourself out the door to go for a run, then you're going to lose the love of it. Keep the love of the sport, in what you're doing. Love going out for your run, and that's what I try to do with my teams as well. Try to get them to enjoy the sport and know their sport, so that they can enjoy it not just in college, but when they get out of college. I always say to them that running is a sport for life, and stuff. It's not something that you do in college and don't do anymore. You can do it for the rest of your life, so enjoy it.
Great. Well, thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate it. Anything you'd like to say before we get going?
No.
All right.
Go Friars.
Go Friars. All right. And now we are joined by PC runner Lauren Mullins. Lauren, thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Oh, our pleasure. And we just heard from your coach, Ray Treacy. He was eloquent as always talking about your team, but it's always nice to have the student perspective, whether it's about the athletic piece or the student piece here on campus. So I guess the first thing is, why did you choose Providence College?
Yeah, choosing college is always kind of a tough decision because it's where you're going to spend the next 4 years, and it's a pretty formidable time in your life. I was looking at a few different schools, and a lot of it was based on the running. I was meeting different coaches and going on official visits and meeting different teams. And Providence just really was a great fit for me. I met with Ray, and he made me so comfortable and reminded me a lot of my high school coach, which I really loved. And the team was just so relaxed and really fun to be around. I could tell that they all had the same goal and the same vision as far as what they were working for, and I really just wanted to be a part of it.
So for you, during the recruiting process, how early in your high school career did that start, generally, and then specifically with Ray and Providence College?
I would say I didn't even really know for sure that I was going to be running at the collegiate level until maybe sophomore, junior year, and then I really kind of seriously got thinking about, okay, where do I want to be? I know I was looking at some schools on the other side of the country, and my parents were like, Lauren, we can only make it to 1 or 2 races if you go there. That's fine, though. And I was like, oh my gosh, I can't do that. So then I was more focused on the East Coast, and from there, it just kind of narrowed down. I would say I talked with Kevin Miles, who was the previous assistant coach, who actually still works here, so that's very cool to see him around. But I spoke to him, I think, senior year, the summer, going into my senior year, and from there I took an official visit here, and the rest is history.
Now, for you, did you have any sense of the Providence College history from a running perspective? So we just heard from Ray talk about some of the people who've come before. You see someone like Kim Smith, who's had a lot of success, as well as many other student athletes as well. Was that for you part of the recruiting process, seeing that kind of sustained success over a long period of time, or was it much more about what's happening on the college campus at that moment?
I would definitely say the sustained success part. I mean, with collegiate coaching, a lot of times you see coaches stay at a school for a few years and then they're off to a new school. And so that was obviously a big concern when I was looking at schools. If a coach is really new and you knew that he was only there for a short time, it was a bit of, I guess, like a hesitation when thinking about seriously considering a school. So with Ray, like, it's actually kind of funny. I roomed with Emily Sisson at during a high school national championship meet. So that was kind of a common connection. And then my sister always idolized Molly Huddle, who ran for Notre Dame, which was then, she was here training, obviously. So it was just really cool to see those girls that were so successful and just how much success Ray's had over the years. And when I sat down, when I was on my official, he's like, I'm not going anywhere. And I knew that I could trust that with everything. So yeah, I was definitely respected him as a coach. So. And
that's a big part of the college choice for you, because running is such a big part of your life. From an academic standpoint, what has made the biggest mark for you as a PC student?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't really know where I wanted to go academically, and I ended up in the business school, which I've really, really enjoyed here, and it's actually, we're getting a new business building. I think it's opening in January, so that's really exciting. And so I've really enjoyed the schooling here. I was in the honors program, which was really challenging, but I really enjoyed it. I think I learned a lot and just kind of grew a lot as a student. But yeah, I don't know.
No, and that's fine, because you have a situation where you have high-level training on one side, right? A national championship winning team. You have a lot of personal and individual goals, which we'll get to in a second. But then you also have the academic piece, like you just mentioned, being in the honors program at a high-level school. What's it like to balance those two things, especially for someone like you, where you're varsity, you're competing in a varsity sport that has a fall and a spring season. So what's it like to balance those two?
Yeah, I mean, I think athletics we all obviously ran in high school and coming into college, you're kind of used to that hectic lifestyle, and it almost, I think, centers us in a way. Like when you only have so much time in your day and you know that essentially every hour you have something to be doing, it kind of helps. Like if I have a bunch of free time or like we have an off week, I kind of get a little lost in that I like have almost too much relaxation time. So I think it's kind of good in a way to organize you and know that like this is practice time, this is homework time, this is now I have to rest kind of thing. So it just keeps you focused.
Right. And so what's a typical day look like for you, say during the week? So it's like a typical Tuesday or a typical Thursday from a time perspective or scheduling perspective.
Yeah. So I mean, now I'm in grad school, so it's a little bit different. So instead of doing classes during the day, now I work during the day. I'm in the athletic department, which is actually really fun to see the other side of things as kind of a student athlete and a worker. And then I go to practice, and then after that I just go home and eat dinner and shower up, and then I have class all night. So undergrad was essentially the same as far as just classes, and then you go to practice, and then you have your evening more free, but there's definitely homework involved and stuff. So it's a pretty similar schedule, I would say. Okay.
And then you also have, in terms of managing that schedule, you have certain ideas in mind from a personal goals standpoint, team goals, say, times you want to reach in the fall, you have, obviously times you want to reach at the 5K distance or whatever the race is. And then in the spring, you have the different events you could participate in. Now, when you kind of step foot on campus your freshman year, how long did you kind of prognosticate out in terms of goals you wanted to reach through your 4 years? You go year by year, or do you have kind of a 3 or 4 year term?
I don't know. I think I'm kind of a funny case. I'm a little bit different than some of Ray's athletes that just start freshman year and are right off the bat like an Abby Wheeler, where she's in our top 5 and training really hard every day. And I was training really hard, but it didn't really fall into place for me quite as quickly. I would say by sophomore year I started to come around and really start excelling at like probably like my high school level or a little bit better. And then from there, it just kind of really picked up. And I really started to see improvement and times dropping. And that's when it really got exciting for me. But I mean, more than anything with Ray, he was just so patient and just like he was talking about earlier, how he stresses consistency. I think that's huge. And, eventually hard work does pay off and you just keep focusing on your goals and you get there someday. So, like I said, I guess right off the bat, I didn't really even know where I was going to be as far as goal setting. But as the years kind of went on, I got more and more hungry for, seeing those places drop. And I wound up, I think, second at the Big East Cross Country Championships last year. So then coming into this year, I kind of had my sights set on, Big East and Nationals and like the hopes of becoming an All-American and things like that.
Right. And you've had a lot of success here. I mean, last year you won the 3K championship at the ECAC meet, right? You ran 9:25:58, which is 5:03 mile pace for anyone listening, which is insanely fast. So congratulations on that. So you talk about how you kind of built up and over a sustained period of time because you were consistent. You were able to reach pretty high level goals, which is a very modest thing to say, but obviously you were a very strong runner during that time. So when you look at some of the athletes who you run with over time and you see them achieving a certain level of success, say you want to also reach, do you find that to be motivating, or do you find that to be demotivating? They're at a different level than you, or how do you manage that?
Definitely motivating. I think that that's one of the best parts about this program is that we're always all challenging each other, and there's so many amazing runners that have come out of Providence College, and all of them are so humble that any achievement that you attain, it's kind of like a drop in the bucket. You're like, oh, like that's great, I'm very excited, but you're moving on to that next thing. So I mean, I think the perfect example is at the Big East Championships. I think it was last year, Emily Sisson lapped me in the Big East Championships, got the NCAA record, and I was second, and I got lapped. So it's just like one of those things where like I was so excited with second place. It was a PB for me, but it's nothing compared to what like Emily Sisson was achieving. So it's just really cool that we're always kind of just building on our goals and looking up to each other, and you're always striving for something bigger.
Right. So you set that PB. Do you have, going into that meet, did you have that in mind as a potential eventuality, or how do you prepare for a race before you get into it?
Yeah, I don't know. I guess it depends on the meet and the race that you're focused on, but definitely postseason is our biggest concern and focus. So I would say any big meet like Big East or regionals or any championship meet you're having, you hope to personal best or at least run one of your best times, just because it is the end of the season and that's what you've been working towards all along. So I'm sure that was hopefully an expectation, but you never really know until that day, and everything has to fall into place, obviously. So I just happened to be lucky, but yeah, it's definitely a building process.
I can imagine. So for you, in terms of post-college experience, right? You mentioned you're in grad school right now. In terms of looking, 5 years down the line, what are you hoping to do, as a PC grad and moving forward?
Yeah, it's time will tell. Everyone asks that, and I wish I knew. I was a marketing finance double major in undergrad, and now I'm in the MBA program. So I would love to end up in the business world in some capacity. I'm not really sure whether I'll be in marketing or finance. I'll definitely probably be running for fun, but that's, I think, what it will be at that point. But it's been so awesome to be able to have these 5 years of competitive running, and I've had nothing but amazing experiences. So I'm really, really thankful for that.
So what's the best PC experience that you've had?
I would say just being on the team and being surrounded by the girls that we have. We just have so much fun together. We really enjoy. I mean, obviously practice is 2 to 3 hours a day, but beyond that, I mean, we spend almost every other minute together as well. And just having them to go through this experience with has been probably definitely the best part. Okay,
so when you're hosting, say, a recruit, right? Ray had mentioned, someone coming in who might come to the program, they get hosted for an official visit. If you're hosting a recruit, what do you when you're talking about Providence College in that way, what do you usually talk about? What are the key points for you as why it's a great school for you or anyone who'd want to attend?
Yeah, I mean, we all respect Ray and love him so much and have nothing but great things to say. So whenever we have a recruit here, we kind of, I think, drill that point home, just like, listen, like he has so much patience and confidence and like faith in the person that he recruits, and he'll always stick by you and always make you better or try to make you better. So I think that's huge, and just like the success that he's had in the past, obviously we kind of already touched on that. And then just the school as a whole, like it's just a great place to be. It's a smaller school, which I think is awesome. I mean, for example, like this past season, I've had a little foot, it's not an injury, but I've just been battling a little bit with it, and just kind of building on this season. And I'll see Bob Driscoll, who's our athletic director, in the hallway, or Carl Branch, and they'll be like, hey, how's your foot? How you doing? Like, how was the race? Great job. And I just don't think you see that at most schools. I mean, maybe you do, but it's just such a close community. Everyone feels like family, and you really do have those personal connections with sometimes people that you never even thought would know your name, you know?
Right. Absolutely. All right. Well, Lauren, thank you so much for joining us. This is great. Good luck the rest of the way. Anything you'd like to say before we get going?
No, just thanks for having me, and just really appreciate it.
Oh, no problem. All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.